Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Khan, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a thing called ethics and what role it plays in international business. I'm just going to let you guys know right now ahead of time that these slides are going to be really simple. So pretty much I just want you guys to listen to exactly what I'm saying, okay? Before we get started, you might be asking yourself, what is ethics? Ethics refers to accepted principles of right or wrong that act as guidelines for how a person, people in a profession, or an organization should behave. It's really hard to have any certainty on ethics because what I might see as ethical, you might see as really horrible. I'm going to go over a couple ethical issues that should be taken into consideration when making international business decisions, because what may seem ethical in one country could definitely be considered heinous in another. First off, we have employment practices. Now let's imagine a factory full of people. The people in these factories work long hours, 6 days a week, and are constantly exposed to toxic material. Oh, and don't forget that these people only make what is equivalent to about, let's say 20 cents an hour. As an American, you'd probably be thinking, what the hell? That's ridiculous. Why would anyone want to work in these conditions? In Vietnam, however, these working conditions are completely illegal. You might think child labor is immoral too, but in China there are a lot of people that see child labor as a necessity. It's a way for kids to be able to help their family make ends meet. And so really it raises the question, is it okay for multinational companies to tolerate these conditions? It's hard to say because all these circumstances are really different and nobody can really set in stone what's right and what's wrong. Another ethical factor that comes to mind is human rights. There are many parts in the world that still don't respect basic human rights the same way we Americans do. Things that we've become accustomed to, like freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, and so on, are nowhere near universally accepted. Let's look at South Africa, for example. Up until pretty recently, racial segregation in South Africa was pretty outrageous. Under the apartheid system, many non-whites were discriminated against. Certain jobs were reserved only for white people, and it was pretty much against the law for anyone that was black to have a job that gave them any power over any white people. As a result of the apartheid system, many US-based companies like GM, Kodak, Xerox, and a couple of others took a stand and basically said, we'll only operate in South Africa if we do not have to abide by your segregation laws. The South African government didn't really mind because they didn't want to damage the economy by having these big companies pull their businesses. After a while, GM felt doing business in a country like that couldn't be ethically justified and figured for things to change, they would have to actually pull their business. These divestments, along with sanctions from other governments against South Africa, pretty much led to South Africa's abandonment of white rule and the whole apartheid system. Long story short, GM and a handful of other companies stood by their moral ethics and helped improve overall human rights in South Africa. In America, there are many environmental laws that regulate how companies dispose of their waste, how they work with toxic materials and stuff like that. When multinational companies move into countries that are less developed, they often don't have the same regulations as America. They often aren't as strict on where companies can dump, how much companies can dump, what companies are allowed to dump, and stuff like that. Should a multinational firm feel free to pollute as they please? Dumping pollutants in the ocean in countries like Congo might not be illegal there, but there are still a lot of negative consequences. The effects of dumping toxic waste anywhere in the ocean can definitely affect people all around the world. And people would definitely argue that doing something like this is unethical. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the company's moral obligations. When talking about an international firm and its moral obligations, you're really talking about the company's social responsibility. Social responsibility is the idea that businesses should consider the consequences on society and the host country when making any type of business decision. Hopefully, the business makes the decision that benefits both the business and the country. There's also the part of businesses that are doing well, giving back to the community that has helped them do well. When businesses do this, it helps boost their image in a very positive way and helps the local community as well. BP, for example, got a really bad rep for the whole oil spill incident that happened a couple of years ago. The incident was definitely tragic and they could have reacted better to the incident. But just because they reacted poorly doesn't diminish the other things that they did, like build desalination plants in countries they noticed had a lack of access to clean drinking water. So when it comes down to doing business across the world, ethics becomes really tricky. Nobody can really set the standard for what is ethical and what is unethical, what is right or what is wrong, because what does right or wrong even really mean? What we think is cruel and unusual, like child labor laws, is considered totally acceptable in many places in the world.